Hi, I'm James Eade of the Eade Foundation. Welcome to episode 58 of the Chess Files. The answers are out there. And today's question is, who's the last gamesman? And I wanted to introduce you to the author of this book. And let's put this on just to show you close up. The Last Gamesman. Who is he? Asa Hoffman. Asa. Hello. Welcome to the show.
Hi, pleasure to be here.
Thank you. And I wanted to have you on because I read through this book on an airplane. And that's how quickly it is a good read. The printing is spaced extremely well. There's wonderful photos in this book. It's a trip down memory lane for many, many people. And how did you come to think of the title of the book, The Last Gamesman?
Well, this is an age of specialization now. There's not that many people who actually are literally a master in 6 games or so. I mean, some are maybe a master of 2, but almost everyone I know, they're either a professional chess player or the professional poker player. I even know a few professional horse players. I guess there are no professional. Backgammon. Yeah, some of them play backgammon.
Right.
But
well, on the cover of the book, let me just show it again. You can see that there's a chessboard. Of course, you're a FIDE master. It's a backgammon board. There's a Scrabble board and some poker chips.
Right, we got poker chips, we got cards, we got a copy of the racing form there.
Oh, the copy of the racing form, I missed it. Oh, thank you for pointing that out.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think chess and backgammon. I know Elliot Winslow is good at both of those.
Yeah, I know practically everybody. If they've ever been east.
Yeah.
Yeah, Winslow is an IM and was a strong backgammon player, better than me, I think.
I don't know how good he was at Scrabble though.
Steve Brandwein was good at all games.
Steve Brandwein was one of my good friends at the Mechanics Institute later in his life, and he was good at everything. Yeah, and I don't think he was a poker player, though. Was he?
No, he wasn't really a gambler. In other words,
right.
We play games of skill for money. And we have a saying, when 2 people are gambling, very often one isn't.
Uh-huh.
And the skilled player is going to win.
Well, when I would sit down at a poker table in Las Vegas, if I couldn't figure out who the fish was after, a few hands, I figured it was me.
That's what they say.
So, at the part of being the gamesman, which is a delightful read, I just have to tell people, go out and buy this book or order it online. It's delightful. And it's a chess book that has only one chess game in it. It's not really a chess book at all.
No, some people were complaining that there weren't games. I never said it was a chess book. It's my memoirs.
Right.
I'm writing one more chess book. I still have another one coming. Again, when I wrote this book, The Chess Gladiator, it was published in 1995. So I'm going to publish a book of my best games from that time until now. Is another 25 years.
Right. Yes. So most of the chess players my age, I grew up in, my first tournament game was in 1972. No bonus points for guessing why. But you actually grew up kind of with Bobby Fischer. I got started playing chess because of when he was going to win the crown from Spassky in the candidates matches. That's what got me interested in chess. Shelby Lyman's show.
My wife started then watching the show on Jay Bonin. My father and some other people we mentioned actually went to Iceland. I didn't go.
Right. But you mentioned in the book, if I remember correctly, the kind of the crowd was Bobby with you, Bernie Zuckerman, Jimmy Gore, and Jackie Bear. So Bernie Zuckerman's pretty well known. Can you tell me a little bit about Jimmy Gore or Jackie Bear?
Okay. Jim Gore was a strong was a strong master, but I don't know what year he gave it up. But I don't think he played maybe even after the 60s.
Oh,
He was incredibly strong, especially in the slow game. I used to skittle with him, and I could hardly win a game.
I see.
Those were my main teachers. We didn't do official lessons, but I learned how to play modern chess from Zuckerman and Gore. Beers was just like a hanger arounder. He was like a friend of Bobby, but he was only like an expert. I mean, all the rest of our crowd was rated like 400 points higher than him.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, um, Zuckerman comes across in your book as quite the player, quite the talent, and so he would have been a good person to learn chess from.
Well,
But
he was a big opening theoretician. Many
yeah,
U.S. grandmasters consulted with him on opening theory.
right. So one of the things I loved about your book was you had a long list of places to play chess in New York City, in Manhattan specifically. And can you give me a few that come to your mind, that places that weren't just like the Marshall or the Manhattan chess clubs, but were just clubs that people went to play games?
Okay, the most famous club was the Chess and Checker Club of New York in Times Square, affectionately known as the Flea House.
Uh-huh.
And they often played for 24 hours at a time there. And they charged a very modest fee to play, by the hour, and they supplied equipment. And Russell Lemo had a chess studio in the village, very famous grandmaster, ran a place with his wife. Same thing, small fees, play. They were very entertaining. They gave us a glass of wine, and he would tell us all his stories from the old days.
Yes.
Talking to people like him, that was what gave me the idea to write my own memoirs.
Uh-huh.
A guy like Russell Emo, I don't know if
Yeah.
people not too familiar with him now, except, well, there is a variation
Very.
named after him, but he
Yeah.
won like 50 brilliancy prizes or something, which they don't have anymore. And
Yes.
he played for various different countries.
Was he in Fisher's 60 Memorable Games? Did he have a game in there? I seem to remember that name, Russell Lemo, from when I was just learning chess, because that was one of the books I studied early.
I don't know if he was in 60
Okay.
Memorable Games.
But in any case, he was a brilliant player, obviously,
Yeah,
winning that.
he was a chess artist.
Ah,
I like those artists also. Like Lombardi called me an artist, which is quite flattering.
yes.
I like to look for some artistic continuation.
Well, chess is one of those activities that has this rare combination of a scientific aspect, an artistic aspect, and a sporting aspect that you rarely see in any other activity. And so the scientists can really like analyze games and study opening theory, and the sporting guys are the guys who can help compete in all the various ways that you compete, and they get stronger when there's more pressure. They get better, and the artists are, I think, underappreciated in chess, because chess artistry, you have to be a strong player to see it,
Right.
to even
Well,
appreciate it.
one of the most famous people I played, of course, is Marcel Duchamp.
Uh-huh.
And I read, Lasker's his theory that chess is a struggle.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I read Fine's Psychology of the Chess Player. And, well, I'm one of those that believes, just like you say, that chess is a combination of science, art, and sport.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And I think the engines have kind of conquered the science aspect of it, unfortunately,
Yeah,
because
I'm not a big fan of computers, but they're here to stay.
yes, I feel the same way. I used to be a systems programmer in a prior life, so I was never afraid to play them. But I think they've taken some aspect out of the game when the opening preparation goes on for so long before they actually start playing their own individual moves, and
Uh,
everyone plays they play more alike than they used to do in the past. People used to have a style that you could identify, and you kind of would know the players that you would play regularly, what kind of games they liked to play and their style. And so sometimes I don't see this style come across on the chessboard as much as I used to, because the
No,
science.
because people are memorizing openings many, many moves in advance. But that's really only counts for professional players, the very strongest players.
That's true.
Average players, I mean, they know more. They know the openings better, but they don't know that much.
That's
I
a
mean,
very
I've been playing the same openings now for years, and it looks to me like people, they don't even know 10 moves in my openings, but they might know 30, of a mainline open game, Sicilian, royal pass.
yes.
So,
Yeah, when I grew up, they were all playing Fischer's moves, and so I played anything but, uh, and people would struggle just
oh yeah,
because.
well, when I first started and we hung out with Fischer, we played all the variations that Fischer did.
Yeah,
But I soon tried to switch to what you call unorthodox,
right.
unusual openings. And I read all the books on that subject.
Yeah, yeah. So we have a few people that we knew in common. Walter Shipman was the gentleman of chess. As far as my experience in the chess world was concerned, he was an international master, but he was kind of a part-time player because he have a regular
It
job
was
that
a
was.
lawyer. Yeah, it was a lawyer.
He's a lawyer, so he
Right.
was like your dad, pretty
Yeah.
busy.
Well, back in my day, there was only a few chess professionals in the whole country. I mean, I could name them. Fischer, Reshevsky, Lombardi, Evans, Byrne brothers. Then Benko came. That was about it. All
Right,
these other people, they had what you call, quote, regular jobs.
right,
They were talented amateurs,
right,
you would call them today. That's
right.
why I was beating them. I was knocking them off one by one when, unfortunately, got drafted in the Army. Or I think I would have made it to the U.S. Championship. I only had to pass like two more people to get in.
Yeah. Well, tell me a little bit more about growing up. You grew up, your mom and dad were professionals, and you grew up in Park Avenue in Manhattan. Am I correct in that? Do I remember that?
Yeah, yeah. We lived on one of the most expensive blocks in the world, but we didn't own the building, or I would be a
Oh,
multimillionaire.
yes, yes.
We rented. A lot of people actually, they think that I'm a millionaire because for many, many years I never appeared to do what they classified as work,
Right,
and I always had some money in my pocket.
right.
So they didn't quite know like where it all came from.
Yeah. Well, so you grew up there, and I know from your book you went to Horace Mann and then Columbia, but you didn't stick with it in Columbia.
Yeah, I kind of
Fine
majored in
school, of course,
chess.
but
I majored in chess when I hit Columbia.
yeah, and the allure of the chess world and the street kind of took over. And then you started um, becoming the gamesman. And then the army got in the way. Am
Yeah,
I
well,
telling
the
your
Army
history
chapter is a
correctly?
lot of fun too, of course, in the book.
Yeah,
I got strange stories in every chapter, like I would say, not commonplace stuff.
I agree. And they're delightful stories. And also, like getting along with your army bosses at one stage and then not getting along with them. And what an experience that must have been. And but tell me how you made your way in the army. Did you actually go into fight battles, or did you get to be stationed at home?
I was only stationed in the U.S., Fort Dix, New Jersey, and Aberdeen Proving Ground, Maryland.
Right,
And I mean, people don't seem to understand that only a small percentage of the Army actually goes to the war zone.
right,
It depends what your MOS is. MOS is a military occupational specialty.
right,
So if you're a paratrooper or a tank driver, you're very likely to go to Vietnam. But if
right.
you're something else, not likely.
And what were you? What was your MOS?
Well, I was in food service, which sounds like I was a cook, but I really hardly ever cooked anything. But I did arrange all kinds of supplies and things.
Yeah.
Supplies would come, on a truck, and I would count them and arrange them
That's what
and
my
do stuff
dad did
like
in
that.
the Navy in World War II. And so,
Well, the reason I ended up like that, well, I guess it's in the book. I was always in the hospital for one reason or other. Well, they wanted me to become an officer, and I told them, no, I didn't ask to be in your army. Then they wanted to put me in Army intelligence or some other things, but I was always in the hospital, so they kind of gave up on me, and they sent me to the food service school.
right. But you
Which,
scored extremely well in their testing. That's why they wanted you in intelligence or something like that. Is that correct?
oh, I had the highest whatever general score in my company.
Uh-huh.
It was funny
Right. And so
because
tell me a little bit more about the hospital. Was it asthma? What was going on?
well, I had a bad pneumonia once. And another time, a very bad thing happened to me. I was attacked by my own side and suffered a broken jaw, and I had my jaw wired up, and I was in the hospital another 6, 8 weeks.
No solid foods. That doesn't
Yeah,
sound fun.
drinking through straw. It was
Yeah.
no fun.
No, I
It's
can't.
terrible. So anyway, I spent two long terms in the hospital, plus a few short ones just for general upper respiratory
Right.
infection.
Yeah, that's what I got. Is because sometimes I was sympathizing with you while I was reading your book, because you had some asthma difficulties, and places like the Flea House just had to be smoke filled.
Every club was smoke filled when I first came around, even the Marshall in Manhattan, and we fought with the smokers for years, and finally we won against them. But I don't remember what year it was. But they built a special room so people could smoke in the Manhattan Chess Club, wasting incredible time and energy and money,
Yeah.
to do that. So Bloomberg was one of my heroes because he chased all the smokers out of public places in New York.
Okay. All right. But so it was more. It was healthier for you to be out in the outdoors playing
Yeah,
chess.
playing out in the park or the street even is much healthier.
Yeah. Now the Times Square that you knew is not the Times Square of today.
No, we call it like Disney World now. Um, well, in my day, whatever, it had a dangerous reputation, but I mean, you didn't go there 3 o'clock in the morning. I would say
Right.
it was dangerous to one's morals more than it was actually dangerous. They had sleazy magazine stores and movies and game uh, game arcades and stuff like that. And at one time, there were actually 3 or 4 clubs right on the same block between Seventh and Eighth Avenue.
That's amazing to me today. Is
The
but
rent was a lot cheaper too.
yes. Well, that the crushing defeat of most of these clubs. The rent started to go up.
Well, that's what killed the Manhattan.
Yep.
I wrote the sad story. They were so short-sighted all these years. They never bought a building, and the Marshall bought a building, and they've had a home since whenever 1915.
Right.
I think
And
where they
so
are now, they bought it in 1931.
yes, and there were plenty of patrons at the Manhattan that could have afforded.
Right, right. There were some fabulously wealthy
Right.
people there. I mean, you could look them up in the who's who of rich people.
Right.
They were
Right.
there.
And you rubbed elbows with artists, with musicians, with the fabulously rich. Um,
Yeah.
so tell me a little bit about what it was like for you personally meeting those people, those types of people.
Um, well, I enjoy meeting the best, let's say, at any field, not
Hmm.
just games. I always get a kick out of meeting, I mean, Duchamp, Vladimir Horowitz, Piatigorsky, and Mrs. Piatigorsky,
Yeah.
and other people like that. And they're the best.
Yeah.
I met more people like that than I ever met any famous athletes. I never went to games and looked for autographs and things,
Right.
but I did see a lot of the most famous horses at the racetrack. I saw 4 Triple Crown winners,
You
stuff
saw
like that.
Secretariat,
I kind of stayed away from them. I didn't want to meet them personally.
right? You saw Secretariat though, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's the horse that that I remember watching and just being so just admiring the horse as an athlete. What a champion
Well,
it was!
I don't know if you know all about it. His heart was like 50% larger
Wow,
than the average thoroughbred. So that's why he was so incredibly big and strong. And he was considered by those in the know that he would have been the greatest horse of all time, but he retired to go to stud because in that year, stud fees were very high. In some other year, he might have run for many, many years. Yeah, it was fun to see him, just romping
yeah.
along.
Horse racing, I dabbled in it, but I never got the bug. But you got the bug. You talked about how you could win money in at Scrabble, at backgammon, at poker, at chess, but horse racing was a little bit different.
Well, I'll tell you the whole story.
Okay.
When I started, I met these, it was in the 70s, and I met these people that won because not only were they geniuses, but they had some figures made by another genius, not by a computer, but somebody who had observers and kept records of every single race all over the United States. And using that stuff we call the sheets, we were able to win. And I know people that won millions. Of course, nobody believes that, but I don't care if they believe it or not. I saw it. And I won a lot of money, but I didn't begin with a big enough bankroll, or I also would have won millions.
Right.
Anyway, after winning, I won for maybe 10 years, and then the game slowly changed, computerized. People, trainers cheating with illegal drugs, and computerized data that the horse players have. And also, you got to remember, there's an enormous tax built into every time you make a bet,
Right.
about 15%.
That's huge.
That's the main reason you can't win.
Yeah, the
Unless
house
it's,
will always win.
yeah, it's like in a casino. I mean, roulette is 5% against you, and blackjack is 2% against you, etc. So 15% against you, you would have to be much better than the opposition to win. But
Right.
I'd say we were in the 70s.
Right.
Some other people know, they wrote a few books on the subject, not too many actually.
So how did off-track betting affect it? Did OTB all of a sudden change everything, or was that just a normal transition?
Well, it was especially good for the wintertime. You didn't have
Yes.
to look to travel 100 miles to go to some kind of track. You could bet on that track at the OTB. They were mostly pretty bummy kind of places.
Because this was the kind, all the other things that you write about in your book, I had some experience with, but that's like going to the racetrack, seeing the horses before you bet. Was that part of the fun of getting involved in horse racing?
It's more than fun. Some friends of mine were real experts in horse flesh. They could tell by the body language of the horse. Like the one that's ready to win, it has its ears perked up,
yeah,
and it's walking like this. And the one that has his head hanging down with his tongue out, those are the losers.
right.
So I had friends that they were watching with the binoculars, and they run to the big window, 10 seconds to the race, and those people were winners for sure. Just
That's fascinating. So I wanted to talk a little bit about Steve Brandwine again, because before we had ChessBase and all these databases, he was that for us. He could remember every game from all these tournaments. He just had to mention it, and he could tell you who played, where it was played, and how the game went. So tell me a little bit about knowing Steve. He's a good friend of mine much later in his life. So I never knew him from those days. And so I just wanted to pick your brain a little bit about him.
Let's see. I guess he was originally from New England, but he came to New York sometime in the early 60s, and he hung around in some of the same clubs that I did. And to me, it was obvious that he was a genius. that he had a photographic or eidetic kind of memory. He was also extremely well read. He seemed to know everything about history, political science, and
Yes.
philosophy there is. I thought he was a natural to be a grandmaster in chess, or if not that, I thought he would become a college professor or something.
Right.
But for some reason, he never just seemed to be that ambitious. I know he retired from tournament chess with a rating of 2,300, which would be about 2,400 strength today. But I don't know. He wasn't ambitious.
He wasn't ambitious. That's an understatement. You know,
Yeah.
he almost worked at not working, but he didn't want to achieve. But he was so educated, self-educated, with the massive amount of reading that he did, and it was not just chess; it was all sorts of
Yeah,
topics.
no, he was amazing. I don't know what psychological quirk caused him to be so unambitious. Because we also think of things in terms of money.
Yes,
With that mind and
he never
knowledge,
did.
I'm sure he could have got rich at something.
Oh
If
yes,
not chess, if he didn't like the stress of chess, he could have done something else.
uh,
Sure. But he left New York, and I saw him only rarely. He was living in California all those years.
right.
I remember we used to play quite often. I would donate 50 cents a game to him,
Yeah,
and I would come out. I came out ahead maybe 2 or 3 times in my life.
yeah,
It was
yeah.
hard to win a game from this guy. When visiting grandmasters would come, I guess it was in the '70s. He was in New York some in the game room. Yeah, he held his own with all of them.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I know he was in Boston, then New York, Seattle, and then San Francisco. When he was in San Francisco is when I knew him. So it was kind of the later stages of his life. But it was the same thing. People would say that Fisher would come to San Francisco and he would just start playing 5 minute and he would end up going, "Who is this guy?"
I heard some people said that he won 20-25% of the games, which is incredible. I won
Yeah,
about 2%
yeah.
when fishing,
Well,
but I
I
did
was
win
always
some. I did win some.
yeah, yeah, good for you. Yeah, and that's just the fact that you could play those guys and you're still here to talk about it. It's just amazing. And that's why this book to me is a gift. It's a gift to us all because it's a walk down memory lane from a time that so few could ever have done the job that you did in describing it. Because you make things like the Flea House, which I had only known as stories from people like Steve, who
Yeah,
tell me about it, and you make it come alive.
it comes alive. Yeah, it comes alive. I know a lot of people said they picked up the book and couldn't put it down, and they
Yes.
finished it in like 2 or 3 hours. But
Yeah.
there must be some people out there who are incredibly slow readers, though. I ask people, have you read my book? Well, I'm still working on it.
Yeah. Well,
I
part of
think
it
they
is,
look at the pictures and don't really read the book.
well, I always say it, I read your book cover to cover, but it's the inside that I haven't
Right,
got to
that's the hard part.
yet. But this is also, the print is it's just well done. So it is an easy read as
Well,
well.
um,
Well
my wife
produced.
arranged this Gatekeeper Press. We hired them to publish the book. So I own the book, really. I had some offers that I considered ridiculous. People wanted to give me some pittance and then
Yes.
15% royalties.
Right.
But this way I laid out some money, but now I get the 85%,
Right.
not the 15%. But also things changed. Dr. Brady said I should ask for 10,000 advance for that book, but that was before COVID. And since the COVID came, it seems nobody wants to pay anybody anything, except if you're a very well established grandmaster already.
Right.
I just want to say there's only one book that I know of that has some comparative kind of stories in it, and that's The Bobby Fischer I Knew by Denker and Parr, which was written in 2005. And Denker tells the stories of all the players, around in his day and before. And a lot of them were great adventurers and world travelers and did all kinds of things besides chess. I
You know
found
what?
that
I have to tell you this because I published that book It
Oh,
was,
you published a book, A
yeah,
Small
it
World.
was Hypermodern Press, and I knew Arnie pretty well. And Larry and I, of course, argued all the time. Uh, Larry Parr was never wrong, and the best you
Yeah,
could do in an argument with him was draw. But
I didn't realize that you published a book anyway. But
yeah,
that's like half chess, half memoirs.
yeah, and it's
But I liked it. But
players,
mine is
people,
all memoirs. I do them
people
separately.
come alive in his book too, just as they do in yours,
Yeah, I thought that was, an excellent book. There are not very many books like those two out there.
right? No, I agree completely. And there's one other guy that I spent a lot of time with who beat my brains out, although he had a hard time doing it. I gave him a tough time. Walter Brown. Walter Brown, 6-time U.S. champion, lived in Berkeley, so I got to play him a few times. And one game went over 7 hours, and this is before all the increments and time control. Time controls were very different back in those days. And it was a rook and pawn ending that was basically drawn, but I tried to win it. And because I queened first, I thought I was winning. But I traded it into a king and pawn ending to a queen first, and then I was lost.
Well, I knew Brown from when he first arrived in Manhattan, and he was one of those. He was always looking for a new move. He used a lot of time on the clock, and
Yes.
but I saw he was one of the most competitive people that I've ever
Yes.
seen. He also played all games, so his reputation in other games was stronger than his actual strength. I would say.
Yeah,
I
and he
don't
used.
rate him a grandmaster in other games, so only in chess.
I think he
He-
was a house player for a poker club in the East Bay someplace.
Yeah, he was a very tight player. But the
Yeah,
sad story is, as far as chess goes, he finished second in a poker tournament, and he won more money for that than he won for winning 6 U.S. chess championships.
I was over his house one time and I looked at all his trophies and I said, Walter, that is such an impressive array of trophies. He said, I'll give them to you all for $50.
Yeah, yeah. No, mine are gone. I had quite a few. I don't know whether,
So, but he was so competitive because even after that 7-hour game, and I just want to go to sleep, and he wants to analyze. And who's going to say no? Of course, you want to
yeah.
analyze. So, but
No,
he had
he's been a
tremendous.
guest in my house, and so is Asa Hoffman. We must know. I like him a lot too. I like guys who are straight shooters,
Yeah,
who say what they're thinking.
yeah.
You know,
Well, Yasser also, of all the things that I could send so many compliments his way, but when he published Inside Chess, it was such a delight for us because he would put his analysis on to what had just happened. And in those days, you'd wait for an informant to come back and out, and then you would catch up on games. But Yasser was right on it, and he would give his thoughts, without time for much study or reflection. And he was just open about it. He just said, and he would do a wonderful job of explaining complicated positions.
yeah, he was fantastic. By the way, yeah, he published my first book, The
Oh,
Chess
really?
Gladiator. I forgot to mention that.
Yeah.
We don't know who published what, but he wrote my first book, my first book has 3 great introductions in it. He wrote one, Lombardi wrote one, and I wrote one. And I liked that Lombardi said that he considered me a chess artist, and he wrote that he recommends the book to those who aspire to play but one good move in a lifetime. So I thought that was nice.
Yeah. Yeah. And even a game that you would want to show everyone, just that's one of the joys of chess. You can get beat up, but when you play a game that's just so well done and you have to show it to others, it makes it all worthwhile.
So the trick is when you play like 20 or 30,000 of them, the way I have,
Yes.
you're going to end up with some that are going to make you look like a genius.
Yeah.
you know?
Well, I don't know if I ever got labeled a genius, but I did get labeled a patzer. Some of the moves I played were not so good. But there's another guy there. Um, you talk a little bit about Jay Bonin. I wanted to do a shout out to him because his health hasn't been perfect lately, and I want to wish him the best on the air. He's the Iron Man of chess, and it was a cover. There's a picture in here, I think, if memory serves, of the chess gladiator versus the Iron Man.
Right. Some patron of the arts. What's the guy's name now? Now I'm forgetting his name. I'll get it in a minute. Anyway, he arranged a match, several blitz matches, one of which was between me and Jay, and then he hired a bunch of very strong players to write this book. But it's a shame it didn't. It wasn't a great success. Yeah, the guy's name is David Yumtobian.
Ah.
He arranged that stuff. And I know Jay won that match by 8-5, but of course, if you analyze the games, you see I could have won, but I spotted him 13 years and 100 rating points. So that's my excuse why I lost the match.
Oh, yeah. And we talked about the Shelby Lyman show. You've got some information about Shelby in here, a picture of him doing a simul. Yeah. And Shelby Lyman's show on the Fischer-Spassky match was what got so many of us
millions.
In chess.
Yeah, millions.
I really think so.
No, definitely.
Yeah.
And if anyone can ever find the tapes of that, they'll be a millionaire because they're totally lost. We're looking.
And you talk about the one time Steve Brandwine showed up on the show.
Oh, that was funny.
I never saw it, but it was. I guess I missed that one. But he had to get dragged off because
they got the hook.
Yes. And so all these people that you know, it's really good. One guy I've got to ask you about again is Lombardi, because I had one conversation with Lombardi late in his life, and it was a very, very pleasant Lombardi conversation, and I really enjoyed myself talking to him. But he really fell on hard times. But when he was younger, he represented the United States in international competitions. He was
yes, he had a terrific record in Olympiads, and of course he won the World Junior Championship with the perfect score. He's famous for that.
Right.
Well, let's see. Well, I know quite a bit about him. I first met him again when I came around in 1960, and he directed the New York City Junior Championship, which I won a couple of years later. That sounds like a weak tournament, but of course it wasn't. There's all powerhouses in New York.
Yes.
And I went to his wedding, and I went to many pleasant affairs in his house. We played blitz. He cooked the food and all. And for a while, he had some very rich chess students and made a lot of money, but he was very impractical. He seemed to think that this was going to last forever. And I don't think he made any, good plans, especially like keeping enough money to pay the rent. And then later in life, I mean, he fell on hard times, and worse than that, he started suffering from some mental problems. He was living in the subways and all.
Yeah.
Very sad end.
Right.
Another guy, you probably never heard of this guy. It was Nick Conticello. He was a member and a manager in the Marshall Land of Manhattan. And he was another one with a great memory, but he wasn't very competitive. In some ways, he reminded me of Brandwine. But anyway, it was near the end of his life. He was missing, and they found him on the subways. And I said, "Oh my God, this is what happened to Lombardi," and they're both gone. Of course.
Yeah, these stories of why the United States Chess Federation has created a players' health and benefit fund, and it was in part because of these types of stories, where the people that added to our chess culture, that played such a role in our chess culture, would come.
Yeah, no, it's a great thing to have done. I mean, I benefited by it. I appreciate it, and I know several other people.
Sure.
Who got it also. I would say they were all quite deserving of it.
Right.
Nobody scammed their way into it.
No, but that's right. I can't agree. I couldn't agree more with you on that. No one's scamming them for the money. And Lombardi was hard to work with, and we were trying to get him into the Chess Hall of Fame for years. I was on the U.S. Chess Trust, which
And I know all his stories. I mean, he wasn't. He said he was a very impractical person. He wanted them to pay his fare to go to Florida, and then he wouldn't go if they didn't pay. And he said, "Don't put me in the Hall of Fame." And then afterwards, then they put him in later. Anyway,
yes, after
yeah,
he
he was
passed.
not very practical. A lot of chess players are actually they're famous for being so impractical,
Yeah.
one way or other. But he was one that was, really in the extreme.
Yes,
He used
and
to walk.
I recall John Donaldson, who was practically a saint for how much he tried to get Bill to accept an
You know,
induction while he was still
Bill
alive.
and I would walk home from the Marshall Chess Club. He lived fairly near me. We'd walk home late at night, and we had long philosophical discussions. On the and I would try to advise him of about things in life. Obviously, not chess. And he would say, Asa, I know you're right. I know you're right, but I can't do it, or I won't do it, or
Yeah, but chess players,
uh,
they're married to their art in some ways, and the rest of the, like even Steve Brandwine we were talking about, he just didn't care about the material wealth and the material needs that so many other people are consumed by, and these things had no interest for them. And I don't want to sit in judgment of anyone. Everyone makes their life choices, um, but
well,
it's
I
still sad to see.
I judge people. I mean, I've had people tell me that I'm very judgmental, to which I reply, I'm always right. So think of me, what you like, like if I call somebody a rat, look for the long tail. That's one of my philosophies. And
Yeah,
I never badmouth someone just because I don't like them.
right.
That's it. You know what I mean?
There's some reason behind
I
whatever
am
your
a
opinion has been
straight
formed.
shooter, but I branched out and learned all those other games besides chess because my strength was not sufficient to be a professional chess player. Obviously, sounds good, but it's not there. Like at 2,500, even I was close to that. That was good enough to win in the streets and parks. But when I learned all those other games, now whatever they're playing, you could sit and play and make something. Walter Brown used to say, "What's your best game? I'll play it for money." And we have the hustler's credo, which goes, "I can beat any man in any land at any game that he can name for any amount that he can count." So that's
There's something more to being a gamesman than the skill at the game, isn't there? You got to be able to spot the people that you can
okay.
beat.
The first rule of winning at anything: choose your opponent carefully.
It's like sizing up the racehorse.
Yeah. Well, the racetrack is the only thing that I play that I don't actually play myself, and that's why eventually um, it went south. But I mean, you talked about poker before. You played a little poker. I know all these people that play poker. They make two fatal errors before they even begin to play. Number one, playing against players that are much too strong, and number two, playing for stakes that are too high. You can't come and play in a no limit game with $1,000 when four other people have $5,000. And I've met a lot of people like that, and I told them, no, you should only play limit. I only play no limit in tournaments, right? I play limit. Nobody can bluff me out, and I know what I'm doing.
Yeah. And the other thing that I would actually think this was a saving grace of mine that when the everybody was playing Texas Hold'em and it was on ESPN or something and it became incredibly
Yeah, I
popular.
know a lot of people that played, of course. Some of them former chess players.
Yeah,
I
and
know
so
all the old
everybody
timers.
gravitated towards this poker, and there were so many people that just had no business playing. and you could just take their money. But I was already in my career, and I wasn't going to be. I
Yeah,
could have easily wasted my time in Las Vegas.
I didn't know or have any computer when the boom was on. I'm sure I could have won money in online poker just because the opponents were so many beginners. And now it's not legal from New York. So I'm
Right.
hoping it will become legal again. But now there's a danger that you're playing against bots and computers, and they're not even real people. So I don't know if you can win or not. I was thinking maybe you can win if you're playing a small game.
Yeah.
I really don't know.
I don't know either, because that's also been the bane of online chess. They're taking such pains. I know that
Yeah.
Ken Reagan has really done.
Oh, I read his articles and I met him a couple of times. Oh, every few days, chess.com gives me a few points because people were cheating me on computer. Like this morning when I logged in, I had 10 points more. I said, "Oh, somebody must have been trying to cheat me." I
Yeah,
don't know if they won or not, but they were trying.
yeah. But in any case, you think that the death of chess is around the corner because of these computers? And
No, it's not the death of chess, but
no,
it's more and more people playing.
yes,
So it's not death, but also we talked about it before. Only the greatest minds and the highest ratings can actually memorize all this stuff. I would say now, of course, everybody plays the openings better than they did in my day, but the rest of their game is not that much better. Again, except for the real great ones, like the real talents. There's a new kid now. I mean, I know you know the name. He was playing in the club a few years ago. He was a small kid, Hans Niemann. He
yes.
moved very fast, and he beat me very easily. And I said, "Hey, what's this guy?" I said, another one. This guy's going to be grandmaster for sure. Now he's headed for 2,700.
Yeah.
People who play fast and make natural moves and all are good. I played an ad when he was 18.
Well, that was the guy I was going to think of. He just
Yeah.
played so
Yeah,
well, so
cool.
quickly. Yeah. I
They-
really admired his manner of play, his manner in general. He
well, he
seemed like
just did very well. A real gentleman. He just did
a
very
real
well. He's 52 years old. That's like an old man
yeah.
for chess. I mean,
Well, unfortunately, it is a young man's game, and when I tell people that, they always look at me funny because their image is of two old guys in the park playing. That's the mental image when you say playing chess, and it's nothing like that when they're in the toughest competitions in the candidates match that's going on now. These guys have to be in good physical shape as well.
yeah, well,
Um,
I've always been a big believer in that. You have
yes,
to eat well, sleep well, do exercise, being good, physical condition.
that's a big part of being able to continue to maintain your concentration over a period of time.
I did mention that when I was in the Army, when I was on leave, I won several tournaments in New York, and I hadn't opened a chess book or a magazine for 2 years.
Uh-huh.
But I had incredible strength and stamina. I didn't get tired. I was like playing.
Yeah.
I mean, the tournaments I first played, and you wouldn't believe it today. One game Friday night, three on Saturday, and then two on Sunday. Very often played to the death.
Right.
So each one of these games could be 4, 5, 6 hours, and you had to, it was terrible.
Yeah.
I was so happy when they switched to game 30.
Yeah.
I gained like 200 rating points. They profiled me in some magazine there. Inside Chess, I guess.
Yeah. No, you're one of the people whose reputation preceded themselves. Before I got a chance to speak with you, I knew a great deal about you, and people would tell stories about you. It was like
Well, I
no
see a lot of
Benjamin Button.
stories there, but a lot of them, they just totally make them up, or their memories are not too good, or they confuse me with other people. I mean,
Yes.
my wife gets stuff, it appears on Facebook, which I'm not even on, and other places, talking to me. I don't have the faintest idea what they're talking about. I mean,
Yeah.
confusing me with
Yeah.
somebody else.
Yeah. Well, that's
But I
that.
don't worry about it. Like I say, I don't take
Yeah.
it personally.
Well, you're so well known that people make up stories about you. That says something. They don't have to be true as long as they're good stories.
Well, the good thing that people who know me, they're going back to the book. Every word in that book is true. Nothing is embellished. Nothing is is held back. It's all true. And people for years, I would tell a story and people say, "Is that really all true?" I said, "I don't have to make up stories. I have 60 years worth of stories. I pick out the good ones.
So,
Of course,
so how did
they're all true to the letter."
how did you playing outdoors in parks and places like that? How did you know where to go? How long to stay? What was it? Did you have some sort of sense of where the action was, or did it change? It was here for
They
a while
do
and
change.
there.
They changed, but the two main places I played outdoors were in Bryant Park,
Hmm.
where a guy opened an outdoor concession in the 90s. And then later, um, I moved to Liberty Park by the World Trade Center. In each of these cases, I knew the people who ran the games, who ran the boards, because there were other games around town, but I didn't like the boss, let's say. Some of them were on the street or whatever, so I didn't
Right.
patronize them. But I had a big following in Bryant Park and World Trade Center, which was called Liberty Park. People, they would come, they're online waiting to play me like at noontime. And the good thing about that is, well, when I first started to play, there was no one who could beat me whose face I didn't know.
Exactly. Yes.
Not a one. Now, a Russian,
Oh, of course.
an Asian that you've never seen, I mean, they could be a grandmaster. They're everywhere. There was no danger of losing. But I would play at big tournaments. I mean, I was in the book too. If anybody could beat me 2 games, I would pay them and I'd say, "Congratulations. If you don't mind, step aside.
Yeah.
I need a weaker opponent."
Yeah.
And also, I mean, I have my own rules. That when people come and offer you odds so you don't know, never accept. Someone has pointed you out as the fish that they can beat, whatever their strength is. I am or GM. But I was very successful beating grandmasters with money odds only. Like straight up. No, no time odds, which is bad. No material odds, just money odds. I remember once I was playing in Washington Square, where I very rarely play. So I'm playing one of the greatest speed players of his day, Roman Gingerashvili.
Yes.
He's
I was
my
just thinking
age.
of that.
At one point, he beat me 13 games in a row, but he was giving me like 10-1 money odds. And people are saying, "What are you playing this guy for? He's too good for you. You might never win a game." Then I won 3 out of the next 4. I broke the bank.
Yeah.
But someone like Fisher, very often, anyone who played him did not win a game in that session, however,
All right.
how many games it was.
But you would have this knowledge if it's not going your way. You didn't fight it. You just said, "Okay, I'll play someone else." But because
Yeah,
some people get
also,
stubborn and they keep pushing. And
being not a bad guy, I had numerous Grandmaster friends who would play me for nothing. So I don't really have to play a Grandmaster that I don't know for money who's going to beat me.
right.
I mean, Lombardi was one that I played for nothing. And also played DeLugi and Benjamin when they were younger. Well, I played a lot with Ron Henley,
Yeah.
Ciron, played top players for nothing. So it helps to be a good guy a little bit, anyway. You get free chess games.
So this was not the life that your dad envisioned you would lead. Is that correct to say?
Yeah, well, they were all lawyers. My uncle, my father's brother, was a rich big shot lawyer, and my mother was a lawyer. So they kind of assumed maybe that I would be a lawyer. But
You probably would have been a good one too. But that's not where your heart was. Your heart was.
I could have been a trial type lawyer. I like to debate.
Yeah.
I don't like to do research and write long papers and things like that. I'm happy to argue.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I could have been good at that part of it.
Yeah. But I'm already knowing the answer to this, but do you have regrets that you didn't go a different path?
No regrets, because the main thing is people tell me that they envy my life. And I say, "Wow, you have $3 million, you own a house and a car." It says, "No." They say, "Freedom. I don't have to get up in the morning. I don't have to go to work. I have no bosses except when I take what you call a freelance job. Someone says they're going to pay me X to do X. And I tell them yes or no. I fire clients that I don't like, though it rarely happens. I've met 2 or 3 people that took chess lessons. They were incredibly rude and abusive. I just told them, go find yourself another teacher.
Yeah.
So it's the freedom. The freedom is the nice thing.
There's one last thing, because we're running out of time, but I have to mention Bruce Pandolfini, because you have a picture of him in this book, and everyone knows Bruce is like searching for Bobby Fischer and even the Queen's Gambit. He was the chess consultant on that. He was a teacher for a long time, still is. But there's a picture in this book. I can't quite find it fast enough for me right now.
He's wearing a big wide brimmed hat, and he has.
Oh, there it is. I'm sure you can't see it, but
yeah, I can see it. He's down there. There's one of my good pictures up there. I'm in the white turtleneck.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a few pictures in there that I call my movie star pictures. That look a lot better than I do.
Yeah. And you got your tough guy jacket on the cover. You had to keep your reputation up.
Yeah.
You didn't want to get picked on. So, Bruce, I've had on my show before, and he's a wonderful guy. So you've known a lot of wonderful people in the chess world, and you bring them to life in your book. Marvelous book, The Last Gamesman, and you can get it anywhere. So online, anybody that's selling books.
So it's on Amazon mostly. That's where people have been getting it.
And so, someone like me, you don't have to leave your home. You get online, you order the book, shows up at your door. So you have to open your front door. That's the hard part. Yeah. Otherwise, you can get it. So it's been a wonderful treat for me to meet you and to get to know you a little bit and just pick your brains about some of the people that we've known in common.
Yes, it's always amazing. You meet chess players, even from far away places, and we know the same people.
Yes.
A lot.
And a shout out to your wife Ginny, because she helped you write the book. Mostly, it was a combination of she was living the life too. To some extent, she was at the Marshall and the Mechanics with you.
Oh, she was very, very young then.
Yeah.
She was like 14 years old when she hung out.
And now she's an accountant, right?
Retired, yeah.
Retired, okay. But she keeps you on the straight and narrow, I bet, and keeps you in financial well-being. You may not be a multimillionaire, but you're doing okay.
Yeah, we're doing okay.
Yeah. Well,
I put the money away that the government gave us to fight COVID.
mm-hmm. But you're a part of our chess culture. I hope you appreciate what I mean when I say that.
I do. It's fun. It's fun to be a walking history book.
Yes.
And that's why I want to write it up so other people can share in those, all those memories.
And you have done a great service, not just to players of my generation, which are a little bit behind you, but not much, and but to all those people who never got to set foot in the Manhattan of your time, and it made it come alive so that they can live it vicariously through your experiences that you so wonderfully share with the rest of the chess world. Thank you so much for being on the show.
All right, thanks a lot for the kind words, and it's always fun to talk to people that we know the same people. I always get a kick out of that. I meet people. Did you know so-and-so? Oh, yeah, I know him.
Yeah.
All these people.
So I'm going to take you backstage now and have the rest of the wonderful night. I know you're going to stay up and watch an old movie.
Possibly.
And we have that in common. Let me go before I let you go. Did you like the Thin Man series with Myrna Loy?
I haven't seen one of those in 50 years, but
one
of the things I dabble in is old movie lobby cards, and I have some from Thin Man.
Okay.
Where I've had them. I probably came and went.
I had a crush on Myrna Loy the first time I saw her, so I had to ask about it.
There are so many incredibly gorgeous, what we call the golden age of Hollywood actresses. I mean, the only one, I'll tell you which one I knew personally. She passed away now. Sylvia Miles.
Ah,
her name. She was in Midnight Cowboy, and she was
yeah.
in a lot of other Warhol movies, and she was on the stage. I used to play chess with her all the time.
No kidding. No. And you knew Lisa Lane?
I only met her 2 or 3 times.
Okay. But she wasn't that impressed with your black jacket look. Is that it?
Oh, I probably didn't have a black jacket when I met her.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I
I
I
more
just
likely had a sport jacket.
okay.
I was well dressed young man.
Good. All right. Thanks again for being on the show. I'm going to
Yeah,
take you
thank
back.
you, James.
What's
And
that?
say hello to Stuart Chagrin for me, I guess.
I will. I will. I will do that. And I'm going to ask Stuart and maybe Frank Brady to come on and tell us a little bit about the Marshall. They were both past presidents, and that's where you spent a good deal of your chess playing career.
Yeah, well, the Manhattan closed like around 2000.
Yeah.
And so I've been in the Marshall since.
Yeah.
I really haven't been going much lately because of COVID. But
Right.
I'll
Right.
be going.
Totally
Actually,
understand.
this coming month, I'm going to give a book lecture.
Good.
A few books over there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I wish you the best. Thanks again. Really honored to have you on the show.
Okay, thanks again. Maybe we'll meet someday if you come visit the Marshall.
Yes, COVID willing.
Okay.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Okay.
All right. Well, that was Asa Hoffman. The book is The Last Gamesman. And, computers are making it difficult to make a living now in this. But this book was a sensational read for someone like me. I started playing chess in 1972. That was my first tournament game. And players that I had met, I used to think I was hot stuff in New England growing up. And then I went to New York City and I realized I was just an average good player. And Ace lived with those guys his whole life. So that's special. And I just wanted to thank you. This is episode 58 of the Chess Files. The answers are out there.